Hello and welcome to this session on bridging microapps to legacy apps, a prize-winning approach with PowerShell. First of all, I would like to introduce ourselves. My name is Brian and I've been a Citrix consultant for a lot of years and doing a lot of automation. With me I have my colleague Nicholai. He's also into automation and we both love automation and we both work for Conecto in Denmark. On the agenda today, we are going to look at what we are trying to achieve with this solution. We're going to look at how we get there, and then we're going to do a detailed walkthrough of all the elements needed to replicate what we are doing. That means the connector appliance, PowerShell-based APIs, and then, of course, the Microapp itself. And then finally, the key takeaways. Bridging the gap. What do we mean by that? Well, if we look at the application landscape at our customers, the reality is that a lot of them are not supporting the modern way of communicating. Well, maybe not as old as these systems, but I think you get the point. Maybe the application is not hosted in the cloud. Maybe it doesn't have an API at all. This makes it quite impossible for microapps to connect to the application directly and then do its magic. So a gap exists that our customers would like to bridge somehow. In the following, we're going to walk you through how to bridge the gap and enable communications between Citrix Cloud and microapps with on-prem systems. The technique presented in this session can be used on a wide set of systems, but as an example, today we are going to use Citrix Provisioning services, also known as PVS. PVS is a Citrix product that allows machines to boot over the network from a network-based disk. This allows for an administrator to change what disk a machine is booting from without even touching the machine itself. Since the system is only on-prem solution, we are facing a couple of challenges we need to overcome. Provisioning services is not accessible from the internet, and it does not have an API we can talk to. However, it is accessible through PowerShell. In this example, we imagine a school with a classroom equipped with computers all booting over the network. Before a teacher can start a session, they would like to change the set of applications for students. So, why does this matter? Well, if the teacher needs to bother an administrator with that change, it would make life a lot easier for the administrator. It would also make it easier for the teacher as well, since they can now do the switch from their phone by themselves without needing any assistance at all. It also allows them to gain access to complex systems without having any idea how it works, and it makes it easier for the administrator to give them that access without providing the access to the actual system. So how would an overview of this look like? Something like this. At the top we have Citrix Cloud. This is where the integration is defined. On-prem, we have a Citrix Cloud Connector appliance. The Citrix Cloud Connector appliance is running as a VM in your favorite hypervisor and is connected back to Citrix Cloud. Only port 443 has to be opened outbound from the VM. No inbound ports are needed to be opened. When a call is made from the integration towards the statement of record, the actual HTTP call is sent from the connector appliance on-prem. In this example, the connector appliance is connecting to a REST API created with a PowerShell module called Universal Dashboard. Later we will demonstrate exactly how to create this. Basically, Universal Dashboard allows us to receive REST calls and execute PowerShell code. It also enables us to send data back to the Microapp integration. The PowerShell code we execute can then talk to PVS through its PowerShell support. So in order to make this work, we have some tasks to do. First of all, we need to install a Conecto appliance. We need to install Universal Dashboard and to make scripts to talk to PVS. And finally, of course, we need to build out the integration and the microapps. Looking at how this works from a teacher perspective, we can see that the teacher only needs to choose which classroom and which disk. When Update Classroom is clicked, the change on the backend is done within a few seconds, resulting in a nice green text. In the following, we're going to go through each technical element and show you how to implement this in your own environment. In this section, we're going to have a look at the Conecto appliance installation. First thing you want to do is to go to your cloud account and click on Resource Locations. Once you've clicked this, you will have a view of your existing resource connections. In here you can see that I have an orange box that indicates that I'm not having real high availability and only having one Conecto appliance. If I click the orange box, I can see the existing cloud appliances. So I can add one Conecto appliance on clicking the plus sign. When clicking the plus sign, we can actually choose between an ordinary cloud connector that is used for CVAT and stuff, and then the other one that is a Conecto appliance that we can use for specific cloud services. And in our instance, for Microapps, that's what we want, so we click continue on that. On the next page, we are presented with the download page. We can download the template for the hypervisor of choice. At the moment, we support Citrix hypervisor, we support VMware, and we support Hyper-V. So go ahead and click the download image and import that template into your favorite hypervisor. Leave this page alone, as we will come back to this to confirm the appliance once it's installed. So once you've imported the appliance, the console of the appliance will guide you to an IP address. When you go to that IP address, you will be prompted to create a new password. This is only the first time. Next time you will be asked to enter the password, of course. Once you've set a new password and signed in, you will get this page. The Conecto appliance is now ready to connect up to the cloud. So when you click Register Conector, you will be prompted with this page, giving you a code to register with. In this, you have 15 minutes to complete the request on the other end. And if you copy here and go back to the page we were before on adding the appliance on the cloud, we can confirm details here and push in the code. Once we click register here, if everything goes well, you will see as successfully registered. And when you update the overview of the connectors, you will see two green lights, and this orange box that we saw earlier will have disappeared, because now we have high availability. One quick thing to note here is later on when setting up the the integration, we will need an ID of the resource location. So once you're on the resource location, you can click the ID tag here, and once you've done that, you can see this ID that you can copy and paste and save for later. That concludes the Conecto appliance installation.
Hi everybody. Our Microapp needs to communicate with Citrix PVS to change the disks and get information from PVS. In order to do this, we need to create a REST endpoint because PVS doesn't have a REST endpoint out of the box. In our case, it's PVS. It could be a Navision or something else we are going to communicate with. This is just an example of how to communicate with something that doesn't have a REST endpoint. We are building the REST endpoint in PowerShell due to we are system administrators and we like to play with PowerShell. We are going to use a module called Universal Dashboard to this. But before we are going to show you the PowerShell codes, we just want to tell you that we also need a certificate for this because the Microapp requires HTTPS communication, so we have we got a certificate from Let's Encrypt and put it in the computer store on the computer accounts. In the personal store, we have a certificate issued by Let's Encrypt. So in order to create a REST endpoint, we need the Universal Dashboard module. So we are going to search for it and install it. So here's some very basic. We have declared a variable with the name of the certificate, DNS name, and we have created a variable with an empty array, and we are going to add an endpoint with an URL called collections, and the method is get, and the endpoint itself is 3 very basic lines. We're going to import the PVS module, declaring a variable with get PVS collection, and picking properties, name, description, device count, and site name, and convert it to JSON, and write it as output. And afterwards, we are starting the REST endpoint. So let's try it. Okay, now we have our endpoint up and running. So let's try to call this API. with our invoke REST method, and it's a get method like we're set here, and our UI. Okay, we got 3 classrooms, the description, device account, a site name. So here's the full script. It's only 49 lines with code and a lot of space, empty lines. So it's just to tell you that it's really simple to get a microapp running. So here, as we looked at before, we have the collections. We have a get disk. So we could try this as well. So here we are getting the information onto disks. So yeah, it's really simple. Please try it, because PowerShell rocks and Microapps rocks. Okay, here we have our Citrix workspace, the activity feed, we have actions on the right, and we also have it on the left. If we are pressing actions, we are getting a page where all actions are. Here we have the Converge 2020 integration and the available microapps for this user. We have the list classroom. It's just a table where we have listed which classroom has which image. So the classroom 1 has the science image. If we need to change this, we could use the update classroom microapp. Here we are going to choose which classroom we want to update, and we are going to change it to religion image. Update classroom. And if we are going back to home, we should see in the activity feed the notification should come any minute. So it should come any seconds now. Here it is. Classroom 1 has changed. The disk has changed from science image to the religion image. If we are going back to the action and take a look at the list classroom, we should see now classroom 1 has the religion image. Okay, heading over to the microapp. Here's our integration, Converge 2020, our microapps, list classroom, and update classroom. If we're going to take a look at the integration itself, configuration with a name, a base URL, and telling it we are going through a connector appliance and the resource location. The resource location you're getting by clicking on resource location and choosing the exact one. We have the service action. The service actions is where we are going to change the disk itself. We have our action parameters, collection name and disk name, telling it's a post method, and we are calling the endpoint. And we have a JSON formatted body where we are putting the collection name and disk name in it. We have 3 tables with information from the PBS server. We got those from the data loading. We have created 3 endpoints, a collection endpoint, a list endpoint, and a disk endpoint, where we're getting information like the disk name, disk size, descriptions, and so on. If we're heading back to the integration and take a look at the Microapp, the list classroom appliance, the page, we create a page with a table on it and a static image. Here we are just getting the data from the table, the 3 different tables. If we are heading back to the integration and take a look at the update classroom, we have a notification. This notification is running every time we have triggered the update classroom, and telling us this collection has changed, and we're telling in the body that the disk has changed from religion to science image, for example. On the page we have created 2 select boxes where we are getting data from the collection table and the disk table. And the button is calling the action change disk with the parameters collection name and disk name. These information we are getting by selecting the classroom and the desired disk.
So what have we learned here? Well, using the technique presented here, almost all legacy systems can be connected to a Microapp. We learned that deep developer skills are not exactly needed. We happen to know a lot of PowerShell, and through Universal Dashboard API creation, it enables us to connect all the dots. Speaking of Universal Dashboard, to make Universal Dashboard more resilient and production ready, you can run it as a service or even integrate it with IIS. You can find detailed information on how to do this in the documentation for Universal Dashboard. Implementing 2 appliances is of course also recommended moving towards production. Requests are automatically distributed between them. A thing to consider is that when the Conecto appliance is sending out HTTP calls, it requires the use of HTTPS. So this calls for a publicly trusted certificate on the API endpoints it talks to. In this example, we used Let's Encrypt certificate, and that works perfectly fine, and it's free. Finally, when you create the integration, you need to use the ID identifier from the resource location. At this moment, this is not exactly obvious, so that this might save you some time. If you have any questions to what we presented here, please feel free to reach out to us on the email stated here or attend the Q&A session associated with this session. Thank you very much for attending our session and enjoy the rest of Converge 2020.